Chapter 4. Pathways to Madness. Cassia was glad to see him go, but feared they were making a big mistake. It wasn't so important they agreed with Felt as much as they did what was best for survival. They'd later regret he wasn't fighting at their side, as getting away from this place was their top priority. Now they were stuck. Marion would never change her mind, and things would only worsen if the captain returned. Even so, Cassia wished to see him again someday, alive and well under different circumstances. A faint shout echoed down the hall.
Kay? Kay?
Elle, what's wrong?
Cassia splashed into the darkness, heart hammering in her chest.
Where are you? Answer me.
There was a long pause, followed by a faint,
Sorry. You need to come see this.
She sighed in relief.
We're coming. Stay where you are.
Floating objects bumped against her as she pushed forward. Clumps of tangled weeds and drifting wood. She did her best to ignore them, but couldn't stop from jerking back when her hand brushed something small, squishy, and covered in hair. From behind, Marion said,
Come on, Chess. Get on Roke's other side and help with these steps. Now, girl, or would you rather be left behind?
Down the hall to one side, Cassia reached an open doorway. Through dim cracks in the ceiling, there was just enough moonlight from the upper floors to see a blackened rocking chair and a mildewed crib. It was too dark to see much else, but the putrid smell was suggestive of a storeroom, as though containing barrels in various states of decay.
Elle?
Over here.
Came the response. Not from the room, but further down the hall. Chisandrel shrieked. Cassia spun, to realize the girl had stepped into ice-cold water.
We're going through here,
She moaned,
If Illyriel could do it, so can you,
said her mother. Under different circumstances, Cassia might have felt sorry for the girl, who didn't have leather, but a dress to keep warm. She was shorter than Cassia, and the water, no doubt, came up past her belly. At the moment, however, it was all Cassia could do to keep moving the right direction. Shadows drifted across her vision, more or less, where the walls were supposed to be. More than that, however, she was mostly guessing. A blur coalesced, causing Cassia to jerk back as it splashed toward her.
Elle? I told you to stay put.
You were taking too long. Just follow me. It'll be faster if I show you.
Show me what?
This way.
Said Illyriel, tugging her hand.
It's not far.
Cassia allowed herself to be pulled into the dark. She wasn't worried about the others getting lost, as, thus far, the path had been straight. What troubled her was how far they kept walking, despite what her sister said. From outside, the building hadn't appeared half this large. They must have gone over 50 steps before Illyriel stopped.
Something's wrong. It was right here.
Just tell me what we're looking for.
I found the worship circle for our ceremony, but it was incomplete. Talarian's statue wasn't there. Most the gods weren't.
Cassia's heart sank. Telarian, after all, was the only god to which Marion had a claim. Her bloodline, like Cassia's, was specifically aspected to his, and if his statue was absent, the ceremony became quite impossible.
You're sure it was the right room? How many gods did you see?
Distractedly, Illyrio said,
We must have passed it. Come on.
Far down the damp hall, from where the trio was catching up, Roke's voice echoed.
Could someone tell me what we're looking for?
The worship circle.
Said Chisandril through chattering teeth. Cassia was surprised by how well their voices carried. The others had clearly heard Illyrio, despite being separated.
I got that,
said Roke.
but what does it look like?
Chisandril gasped.
You don't know?
Illyrio stopped at the next doorway and slumped in defeat.
I'm sorry,
He responded.
but I've only been in one, maybe two of these places my entire life. No one in my family is a believer.
What?
Asked the girl in shock.
They just pretend the gods weren't real.
Chess,
Scolded her mother.
don't be disrespectful.
Her question's valid,
Said Roke.
and no, we're fully aware the gods used to exist. But that's just it. They used to. My father sees no point in continued worship, or even learning their names, for that matter.
But that's... What about your god's name? You know you're aspected, right? Everyone is.
Vasher? Vasher.
Vashek.
The girl corrected, without hiding her disdain.
That's the one. Don't get me wrong. I've heard them before. It's not the sort of thing you can avoid. But I get them mixed up. Their teachings, their stories.
Here it is.
Said Illyrio, her voice flat and strangely confused.
I could have sworn. It was on the left before.
She paused for a moment, less than convinced.
There's no way I got turned around.
Cassia said nothing. Amid this darkness, it was easier to believe her sister made a mistake. It certainly beat the alternative, that the basement, like the forest outside, had started to change. She didn't want to imagine what that might mean, as such changes were supposed to be impossible while people were looking, or even nearby. The splashes from Marion and Chisandril, supporting Roke between them, had nearly caught up, and Cassia followed her sister into the room. Wide cracks in the ceiling let in more moonlight than the hallway outside. It illuminated a statue near the center, a stern-faced woman with billowing robes. She was entirely alone, with no other gods hiding in the shadows. Cassia shook her head.
It's not the right room.
But
Her sister protested.
don't you see who that is?
I recognize that one.
Said Roke from the doorway.
Ashira, right?
Illyrio pulled Cassia to the side.
Do you get it now? This place was hers. The clergy who lived here, they worshipped her.
Roke frowned, trying not to lean so much on Marion.
Why is that bad?
It isn't.
Said Cassia, hoping everyone would calm down.
Wait,
He continued.
Ashira. Wasn't she like their queen? The consort of Shaelus himself.
The name Shaelus, of course, was known by everyone. He'd been king of the gods and the aspect of stratum. If the legends could be believed, he'd lived the longest, since before the world of Erlon came into existence. Ashira, on the other hand,
Their queen? Sure.
said Illyriel.
These days, most people call her the betrayer.
Oh,
Said Roke.
I didn't know they were the same.
Only if you believe the rumors.
Said Cassia, putting force into her tone so her sister would drop it. Illyriel, however, didn't take the hint.
I think we should leave. This place is cursed.
That's enough, Elle. She did nothing wrong. It's never been proven.
Then why was she locked up before they died? Her own husband, Shaeless, put her on trial. Does that sound like someone free from guilt?
Cassia groaned.
No one understood what the problem was. If Shaeless had, he would have stopped it. You know he would have. The fact the world ended, regardless, proves something else was to blame.
Roke appeared confused.
This betrayer, didn't her aspect disappear? There are people bonded to the gods, but not to her. Not anymore. There used to be thousands, but they all died or something.
Not exactly.
Said Illyriel.
I mean, they're probably dead. The belief is that they were lost to the current, torn from this world and forced to coexist among those god-awful creatures.
Cassia sighed.
The most likely explanation.
But that just proves my point.
Her sister insisted.
Ashira condemned her people with what she did.
It doesn't prove a thing. Only how desperate we are to cast blame on someone.
Illyriel threw up her hands.
If not her, then who? One of the other gods? Who else could have possibly created the current?
Cassia was losing her patience.
The abyssal current wasn't made. No one even saw it till the gods were gone. Something else killed them.
Like what?
Cassia didn't answer. There was no answer.
So it might have been her.
The girl pressed stubbornly. But Cassia was already finished with the conversation.
Not now, Elle. We need to search the other rooms.
The girl paused.
You're sure this isn't it?
To establish contact with the Aelic realms, you'd at least need Shaeless. Probably even more. Ashira by herself is inadequate. You'll have to trust me on this.
Roke sounded doubtful.
What if someone just moved the rest?
Who would do such a thing?
Asked Gisandril in shock.
It's possible,
Admitted Cassia.
but unlikely. Just look at this room. It's too small for a circle. We need to keep looking.
She moved back into the hall, but didn't feel comfortable starting from there.
Let's go back to the stairs. We can take each room, each path, one by one. At the very least, we can hope to find someplace dry.
No one argued, eager to be free of this wretched cold. The journey back, however, proved to be a problem. Only minutes had passed since they'd left the stairs, and she was sure they were headed the right direction. But the hallway seemed different. She thought the ceiling was lower, despite her inability to see anything clearly. She wasn't sure at first, but the waterline, too, seemed to change. She had to lift her elbows to clear the surface, as though they were walking down from a shore. But the floor remained level without the hint of a decline.
We're going the wrong way.
Complained Chisandrel, who soon would have water up to her neck.
See?
Asked Illyriel in nearly a whine.
I wasn't making it up.
Okay.
Said Cassia, taking a deep breath.
Everyone stay calm. It's possible the directions were only switched. We'll try the other way.
This wasn't logic, but ill-disguised hope. If the place kept changing, then every direction could be equally wrong. Turning back could lead to even deeper water. Luckily, it didn't. The waterline receded as quickly as it came, down to her waist, then to her hips, as though the place itself was leading them somewhere. This should have been concerning, but she wasn't yet worried about being trapped down here. There were holes in the ceiling, large enough to crawl through. They could still take their chances elsewhere if this strange phenomenon amounted to nothing. The room with Ashira never reappeared. The water dropped to their knees, then their ankles, and when the hallway seemed like it would go on forever, it abruptly ended with a set of stairs. Only these didn't go up. They were carved downward through the bedrock, disappearing into dark. Dim moonlight fell through a hole in the ceiling, revealing pale stone steps that were strangely dry. There was no explanation for the receded water, or why the lower levels hadn't been flooded. It was only as Illyriel neared the edge and peered cautiously downward that a new possibility occurred to Cassia.
Wait, stop!
She pushed past her sister and inspected the ceiling. At the cracks that'd easily allow rain inside. Was that what this was? Was it possible they were now standing waist deep in blood? So much of it was pushing the other water back. But no, if that were true, she would have known. She would have felt pressure making it difficult to walk. And besides, the scattered scraps of wood would be buoyant. They'd be floating in the air.
What is it?
Asked Illyriel. Cassia sighed and shook her head. She had no choice but to concede it was something else. A phenomenon she might never understand.
Dark heavens,
breathed Marion, propping Roke against the wall.
Is that?
Cassia nodded. While every monastery wasn't built above a subterranean tomb, it was common enough this couldn't be anything else. There wasn't a worship circle up on this level because the monks had discovered a better location. Death, after all, was a doorway where multiple realms aligned. Gathered like this, in such concentration, it blurred the lines between worlds and facilitated access to the gods.
Chess?
Asked Marion, suddenly concerned. She took her daughter by the shoulders.
I'm all right,
said the girl through chattering teeth. Marion gave Cassia a look of apology.
I'd hate to slow you down. We'll catch up in a moment.
Cassia was torn. While she knew how important it was to push on, to complete the ceremony before the creatures returned, they couldn't afford to start making mistakes. Chisandrel wasn't the only one past her limits. Cassia had done her best not to notice, but her aching muscles demanded attention. Her mind had gone sluggish. and she didn't want to go down that hole by herself.
I'd rather not split up,
She decided.
This scrap seems dry enough. We should start a small fire.
You're sure?
Asked Marion, with more concern than relief.
We'll keep it brief. I've been wanting an excuse to look at those notebooks. And this way, we can dry off, recover some strength.
I meant the fire. It's not too much light?
Cassia looked down the hall.
I'm unsure where this is, but we aren't near an exit. The only way we'll be seen is if they're right above us.
No one objected. There was no lack of wood that had fallen through the ceiling. There were broken bits of furniture and tangles of branches. Strangely enough, it wasn't just dry, but free from slime. Most of it, anyway. For kindling, they made use of Chisandrel's ribbons. Marion contributed paper, either blank or expendable for the writing contained. All in all, the process took longer than Cassia would have liked. But after her flint coaxed the flames to life and her face began to tingle, all lingering regret melted away.
No one falls asleep, understand?
She said, as they sat against the walls, wringing water from their clothing.
We're performing the ceremony tonight.
Without waiting to be asked, Marion retrieved a worn journal from her bag. It was bound in a deep, blood-red leather and contained a block of pages close to an inch thick. Beside her, Illyriel rose to a knee. She gathered Cassia's hair and pulled it to the side, so no loose ends would drip water onto the paper.
Thanks,
said Cassia, as she set the book on her lap. It was surprisingly heavy, not only in content, but in the degree of responsibility she felt on her shoulders. There was no possible way she could read this all, and it wasn't long before her doubts resurfaced.
Here,
said Marion, with a look of understanding.
I've marked which pages pertain to the ceremony.
Cassia nodded, but didn't immediately skip to the designated section. Instead, she flipped to a random page, hoping for a hint of who her father had been. Something about it made her stomach uneasy. It was all in the penmanship, meticulously scripted with the occasional flourish. She knew it at once for her father's hand, though she had no specific memories reading it, even as a child. She remembered to breathe, surprised by the weight of her reaction. More than once, her eyes lingered on a passage.
Ascension is not what it used to be,
he'd written.
With each passing year, the world sinks deeper. The monsters larger while we grow weak. Our ceremonies fail, denying ascension to the ones most deserving, the ones destined to rival the ascendants of old.
Cassia held back a sigh, unsurprised. There was no question in her mind he was talking of himself. He didn't only blame his ritual, he had the audacity to insist he deserved ascension, and that he would have been superior to the rest of his colleagues. She knew what that was like, the need to feel important, to deny your faults and pretend to have value. But it was also a trait she'd learned to despise. It was this need to prove himself, after all, that had torn Gendal's family apart. He'd spent less time at home, lying to himself he was doing it for them. Ultimately, he never came home again. She found much the same on the other pages, only in greater detail. He didn't just insist the ceremony was wrong. He went to great lengths to justify his reasons. He broke down the steps into their constituent parts, focusing on the safeguards involved. Shortly after that, she began to feel sick. She flipped ahead just to be sure, but there wasn't any doubt about the changes he intended.
Marion,
She said, swallowing hard.
we can't perform this ceremony.
The woman groaned.
Keep reading.
Will it make a difference? I won't stand back and let you kill yourself.
Jesandrel's voice was languid, as though fighting sleep.
What's this, Mama?
I'm not going to die.
Marion insisted.
No?
Asked Cassia.
Then it'll be even worse. You'll end up like them. It'll be just like the day when the gods were destroyed. Their minds were destroyed. And their ascendants, too.
You're sure?
Asked Illyriel, completely horrified.
Father wrote that.
Of course he didn't.
Said Marion.
He didn't have to.
Said Cassia.
Because everyone knows what the safeguards are for.
Yes,
Agreed Marion.
yes. But you have to look at the bigger picture. Don't you find it odd that our ascendants have become weak? That none come close to the ones from before?
Not really. The gods are, well, dead.
The gods, yes, but not their power.
Cassia shook her head.
What would my father know? He wrote these excuses so he could feel better.
You must have missed the part where he writes about you.
Cassia froze.
Me?
She asked.
You were still a young girl. But even back then, he recognized the potential within you. And he knew if you ever aspired to ascendancy, your ceremony was doomed to fail.
Once again, this was completely unexpected.
Her, too.
Said Marion, nodding toward Illyriel. Cassia looked at her sister with sudden alarm.
You don't mean. I never agreed to put her through the ceremony.
And I wouldn't want her to. She's underage, remember? Should be reported to the church by anyone who saw her. No offense.
Don't be sorry.
Said Illyriel.
I'm glad it's not me.
When everyone turned to the girl, she suppressed a laugh.
I'm already special, exactly how I am.
She sounded so sincere, Cassia couldn't help but smile.
Now, hear me out.
Continued Marion.
Almost universally, people believe that when the ceremony goes sour, it's due to inadequacies found in the candidate. They lack certain qualities and would have achieved ascendancy had they only been more in tune with their god. Now, while this may be true in some cases, your father wasn't satisfied. In fact, he theorized the opposite was true. That the subject, at times, possessed too much aptitude.
Cassia wanted to argue, but was too distracted, remembering her ceremony.
Just think about it, Kay. If there were such people destined for greatness, wouldn't their bond bring them that much closer to their god? But since the gods are dead, that is what kills them, and would have killed you if the protections weren't there to disrupt the ceremony.
An unsettling silence fell over the group. Cassia didn't know how to feel. Was this supposed to be comforting? There seemed little point in believing she had potential for greatness when, in the end, it had been for nothing. If anything, what Marion said only made her feel worse.
I'm confused,
said Roke, after a moment.
These safeguards sound like a good thing. I mean, you're not suggesting her death would be preferable, are you?
Don't be foolish. If Cassia kept reading, she might consider other ways around the problem.
Cassia closed her eyes in frustration.
Could you explain it, then? How my father found a solution when no one else has for hundreds of years.
Gendal was the only one brave enough to stand against the church. He dug into their records, finding everything he could on those ancient ascendants, the ones who went insane and tore down society limb from limb.
Records?
Asked Cassia.
Karheim was razed to the ground. It's a miracle anyone survived. But paperwork, too?
A few transcripts, copies of copies, interviews, autopsies.
Jasandral gasped.
You mean from cutting them up?
Of course. Now hush. There were many back then who tried to figure it out, to know what went wrong up here.
Marion pointed a finger to her head.
And you know what they found?
After a pause, she said,
Absolutely nothing. Their brains were as healthy as any regular humans.
So?
Asked Cassia.
A lot of lunatics lack such abnormalities.
It was enough for your father to keep searching. Though we lump all the crazies beneath one blanket term, as if all malfunctioned in the same way. Nothing could be further from the truth. These ascendants didn't suffer from malignant disease, and they didn't break down under mental duress.
Wasn't it a backlash?
Asked Roke.
A surge from the gods that fried their skulls.
That's just rumor,
said Marion, and she raised a hand before Cassia could protest.
Trust me, most people prefer the simple explanation. But your father knew better. He hypothesized there wasn't any damage at all, not to the body and not to the soul. He surmised the person wasn't insane, but the problem lay entirely within the dead god's mind. An external complication, and as such, one that might be counteracted by a second external force.
You lost me,
said Roke.
It's quite simple. The ascendant needs to be bound tightly to their god, as that is what gives their aspect power. But what we don't want is for their mind to form part of that bond, because that's what kills them.
You're still not making sense,
said Cassia.
It's not like you can choose. The mind and soul are connected. How did he propose to separate?
By simultaneously creating a second bond, connecting the mind to something else. Another person, in fact. Someone healthy to serve as their anchor.
But that sort of bond doesn't exist,
insisted Cassia, only to pause to reconsider. An anchor. Someone to protect the ascendant and hold it all together. Cassia gaped in realization.
You don't mean...
She paused again in confusion.
But, Marion, you're already married.
Doesn't matter. My husband would have provided a sufficient anchor were he still alive. but his isn't the only soul in alignment with my own.
Cassia blinked, then turned to Chisandral. The young girl withered beneath the extra attention.
So, wait.
Continued Cassia, flipping through the book.
In his diagrams, there are overlapping circles, one of ascendancy and one of devotion, of matrimony?
It felt strange to say the word outside its usual context. It wasn't as though the woman would wed her daughter.
2 circles.
Confirmed Marion, as Cassia reached the page.
2 ceremonies taking hold as one.
The diagrams had been drawn with a steady hand. 2 perfect circles enlaced with lines and symbols. Everything measured and exactly to scale. Of greatest interest was the area where the circles overlapped, where she expected their designs to conflict with each other. Gendel, however, had discovered an exact orientation and size for each one, so that both were reconciled with elegant simplicity. In the end, he'd added a few markings she didn't recognize, but she knew from context they were for balance and stability. It was the last thing Cassia had expected to find. That her father, in a way, had been brilliant. Reckless, perhaps, but his ideas had the potential to change the world. They deserved further research, to be analyzed by priests with sufficient resources, to be tested in a controlled environment, not performed in a waterlogged cave by a cast of amateurs. She looked up from the book.
There's so much that could go wrong. What if you and your daughter both go insane?
Marion shook her head.
The bindings are different.
That's what you think, but how can you be sure? Like, right here.
She said, pointing to a symbol.
These margins have never been tested. Are you certain they'll handle the additional load?
Marion, of course, didn't have a response.
And what of the rest? You realize, don't you, once Chisandral takes part in that circle, she won't be able to marry anyone, ever. Have you thought of that?
She will. After I'm dead.
Are you listening to yourself? And let's not forget the biggest issue of all. Even after all this, it might still be insufficient. Even if Chisandral's safe, the risk remains you won't be.
For a long moment, the woman said nothing. She took a deep breath.
Then, at least, we'll know.
Cassia blinked.
I never said there wasn't risk,
said Marion.
That's why I'm not asking this of anyone. It's my life, Cassia. My choice.
One that affects us all. When everything suddenly goes wrong and we have an insane ascendant on our hands, what are we supposed to do? Kill you?
Yes,
said Marion, with eerie finality.
And if we can't?
Cassia couldn't imagine what it might be like to go toe-to-toe against an actual ascendant. An insane ascendant. It was so frightening that she began to wonder if Velt had been right. Maybe they should put a stop to this. Marion took a deep breath, and, in the end, left the question unanswered. The Nightmare Throne by Lynn Clark releases September 27th everywhere books are sold. You can pre-order it right now on Amazon in standard hardcover, paperback, ebook, as well as the audiobook you've already started listening to. The printed version features 50 illustrations produced by the author himself, including chapter headers, full-page artwork, and a double-page map in black and white. Furthermore, from right now until September 27th, a special deluxe full-color edition is available for purchase on Kickstarter. This includes the same 50 illustrations printed in color, as well as a dust jacket, custom end papers, sprayed edges, and alternate artwork printed along the case laminate, featuring both sisters on opposite sides. This version will be signed and numbered by the author in the order of Kickstarter backer number. That way, people who pledge earlier will receive a lower and more collectible number. Just search for The Nightmare Throne by Lynn Clark, or check the show notes of this podcast for the relevant links.